Hello everyone. I hope you all are doing great. Now I think it's time to start a session on deep learning. Okay, so before we start, let's discuss what all we will be covering in today's session. Firstly, we'll learn the relation between artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. Then we'll talk about why deep learning is so essential in today's era. And then we'll cover neural networks, linear and logistic regression. Lastly, we'll demonstrate the working of an image classification project. I think that most of you are probably aware that deep learning is the reason behind the most mind-blowing inventions of the recent decade. And because of deep learning, most of our biggest dreams have also come true. Basically, deep learning is everywhere, from a virtual assistant like Alexa to autonomous tests to diagnosing health disorders. And if you see the past 10 years, the best performing artificial intelligence systems, such as the speech recognizers, smartphones, even the Google's automatic translator, have resulted from deep learning. Now let's talk about some of the exciting things that could be built using deep learning. So firstly, we can make an image classifier. Secondly, we can make an automatic music generation project, a text summarizer, a chatbot, a driver drowsiness detection system, a human activity recognition system, and many other exciting things. Now I think that people who are new in this domain must be wondering what exactly is deep learning. So in simple words, it's nothing but a form of artificial intelligence that seeks to replicate our human brain. Now let's discuss deep learning in the context of intelligence. So intelligence is actually the ability to process information such that it can be used to perform future decisions. Now the field of artificial intelligence is a science that actually focuses on building algorithms that could do the exact same thing. By exact same thing, I mean that we can process the information to inform about the future predictions. And machine learning is basically the subset of artificial intelligence that basically gives an algorithm the ability to learn without being explicitly programmed. Deep learning takes this idea even more further. So what it does is that it extracts useful patterns in the form of raw data and makes a task much more simpler. Now let's discuss the difference between the traditional programming language and machine learning. So in the traditional programming language, what we do is that we give the input to the program and then we get the output. But in case of machine learning, we give the input and the output and we get the program out of it or the algorithm out of it. This is what makes machine learning different from other versions of coding. And this way, we can differentiate ML from the older versions. So like in this picture, you can see the difference between machine learning and deep learning. So in machine learning, what we're doing is that first we are providing the input, then we're doing the feature extraction. After that, we're doing the classification, and lastly, we're getting the output. For instance, like take a diabetes prediction project. So in that, we have to predict whether a person has diabetes or he does not have diabetes. So what we'll do is that we'll define certain features like what is his glucose level, what is his calories level, or like the BMI level of the person, and then we'll classify it. But in deep learning, this feature extraction and classification is done in like in a single process. So it makes the task much more easier, and like we can deal with a large data set using deep learning easily. Now let's talk why there is a need of deep learning in this era. Firstly, data is pervasive. Like if we take a close look, almost every industry uses data to perform analysis. Secondly, we have improved architecture nowadays. That is, for instance, the GPUs that we have today are extremely advanced. Thirdly, we have improved software architecture. Like TensorFlow, which focus on training deep neural network, has made the task extremely simple. Now coming on to neural network, so what is the neural network? It might seem scary at first, but when we take a close look at it, then it becomes very simple, believe me. So like in simple, it's just a combination of these three layers. That is the input layer, the hidden layer, and the output layer. Now we'll discuss how this processing is done. So the first thing to keep in mind is that information flows through a neural network in two ways. When it's learning, that is when it's being trained, and the second one is when it's operating normally, that is after being trained. And patterns of informations are fed into the network via my input layer. Now what happens is that these input layer triggers the hidden layer, and these in turn arrive at the output units. So this common design is called the feed-forward network. And one thing to remember is that not all of these units fire all the time. What actually happens is that each unit receives input from the units and are multiplied by the weights of the connection they travel along. So every unit adds up all the units it receives in the way, and if my sum is greater than the threshold value, then only the unit will fire, and otherwise it will trigger the rest of the units. Now we'll discuss the math behind it to get a more clear understanding of this. So you can see this xi. So xi is my linear combination of inputs. I'm multiplying my xi with wi. Here wi means the weight. And then like I'm doing the summation from I is equal to 1 till I is equal to m. And then I'm adding this whole term with my bias value. And after this, I'm multiplying this whole term with my activation function. Okay, so now what do I mean by wi? So wi is basically the weight. Weight is the parameter within a neural network that transforms input data within the network's hidden layer. Second comes bias. So W naught is the bias. So the bias value allows the activation function to be shifted to the left or to the right to better fit the data. Third comes my activation function. So the activation function is a function that we add into the artificial neural network in order to help the network learn complex patterns in the data. Now let's move on to the importance of activation function. So the basic purpose of the activation function is to introduce the non-linearities into the network. And the most famous type of activation function that we commonly use is the sigmoid function. Now the main reason that we use sigmoid function is because it exists between 0 and 1. Therefore, it is specially used for models where we have to predict the probability as an output. And the other common activation functions are the sigmoid function, the hyperbolic tangent, and the rectified linear unit. And to do a certain project in it, we can use the following commands. Like for the sigmoid function, we can use tf.mat.sigmoid. For the hyperbolic tangent, we can write tf.mat.tanh. And for the rectified linear unit, we can use tf.nn.relu.
Guys, are there any doubts so far? Okay, so moving on. The concept of linear regression and logistic regression serves as a base for the deep learning. So if you want to understand deep learning in depth, you need to have a clear idea of these two terms. Okay, so although it has been covered in the previous sessions, but for brushing up the concept, let's have a look at it once again. So let's begin with linear regression. So linear regression is a method to predict dependent variable based on the values of independent variables. So it can be used for the cases where we want to predict some continuous quantity. Okay. So the dependent variable for a linear regression model, it's always continuous. Whereas the independent variable, it can either be a continuous one or a discrete one. So let's look at how linear regression works. So first of all, we try to figure a relation between the dependent variable and the independent variable by using a best fitting straight line. So the graph you can see here, it's the graph of a straight line, right? So also linear regression is called a simple model. So why do we call it a simple model? Because it takes only two variables. So in this case, it is taking a dependent variable and an independent variable. And then we try to establish a relation between them. Now, The reason that the linear regression is called the linear is because both the variables vary linearly with respect to each other. So in the previous slide, it was shown the relation between the stock price and the time. So the stock price and the time there are linearly dependent on each other. So by plotting a relation between two variables, we will be observing more of a straight line instead of a curve. Now let's discuss the math behind linear regression. So the equation you see over here, y is equal to b naught plus b1x plus e. It is used to represent a linear regression model. So this equation is used to draw out a relation between the independent variable, which is the x here, and the dependent variable, which is the y. So we all know that the equation of line in maths is y equal to mx plus c, right? So basically a linear regression equation, it is represented along the same equation. So it follows the same concept, which is y equal to mx plus c, because it is also a straight line. So y over here basically stands for the dependent variable, which is needed to be predicted. So maybe in this case, it will be the dependent, it is the stock price in the previous slide. Okay, so b naught is the y-intercept, which is basically the point on this line which touches the y-axis. And that is why it is called the y-intercept. So this b naught over here, with the circle, which is marked on the y-axis, it is the b naught and it is the y-intercept. b1 is the slope of this line. So this linear line, and this slope can either be a positive one or a negative, depending on the relation between the dependent and the independent variable. Next, we have x. So x here represents the independent variable that is used to predict the resultant dependent variable. So x is the independent variable here. And E denotes the error in the configuration. So any sort of error is denoted by E. So here you can see the error over here, like yellow dot, it is shown by the yellow dot and the line which starts from the slope. So similarly, there are errors for each data point and so on. Now let's have a look at the cost function of linear regression. So the cost function represents the optimization objective. So what is it? Actually, we create a cost function and we try to minimize it so that we can develop an accurate model with minimum error. So here, this is the formula for the cost function of linear regression. So it's j theta equal to 1 by 2 sigma I equal to 1 to m h theta xi minus yi whole square. So here h theta xi is the hypothesis function, which is also a part of linear regression, which is equal to theta naught plus theta 1. Then xi and yi is the ith training data, and this I can be anything, like I can be 1, 2, any integer value, okay. Then m is the number of training example, and 1 by 2 is the constant that helps cancel 2 in the derivative of the function. So in the next slide, we are going to read about the study the gradient descent. So gradient descent is basically calculated by finding the derivative of this function. So to cancel 2 in the derivative, we have this 1 by 2 as a constant here. Now, the question arises, how do we reduce the cost value? So this can be done by using gradient function, gradient descent. So the main goal of gradient descent is to minimize the cost value. So gradient descent has an analogy in which we have to imagine ourselves at the top of the mountain valley. So here in the diagram, we can see this graph and it seems like a mountain valley. So we have to imagine that we are at the top of this mountain valley and we are left stranded and blindfolded. Okay. Now what our objective is, we have to reach at the bottom of the hill. So how can we do that? We can do that by feeling the slope of the terrain around us. We can reach the bottom of the hill, right? So this action is analogous to calculating the gradient descent, and taking a step is analogous to one iteration to the update of the parameters. Now that you have basic understanding of linear regression, let's move ahead and see what logistic regression is. So let's look at what is logistic regression. So logistic regression is one of the basic and popular algorithm to solve the classification problem. And it is named logistic because its underlying technique, it's very similar to the linear regression. So logistic regression, it's basically a method which is used to predict a dependent variable given a set of independent variables such that dependent variable is categorical. So here what we need to remember is that in logistic regression, the dependent variable is categorical. But when we discussed about the linear regression, the dependent variable is always continuous. Okay, so this is one of the major difference between the logistic and the linear regression. Now, what do I mean by categorical value? So when I say categorical value, I mean that the variable can hold values like 0 or 1, yes or no, and so on. So basically the binary type of value is what I mean here. So in logistic regression, the outcome is always categorical. So when the resultant outcome has only two possible values, it's always desirable to have a model that predicts a value as 0 or 1, or as a probability score that ranges between 0 or 1. Okay. So we have to remember that linear regression does not have this capability. And why is it so? Because linear regression works on the continuous dependent variable and not on categorical variables. So let's discuss a little bit about the math behind the logistic regression. So first of all, if you look at the graph here, you will see that it's not a linear line. Instead, it's a curve, right? So this curve is basically a S curve or a sigmoid curve. So the sigmoid curve, it maps the relationship between the dependent and the independent variable for logistic regression. Now, in the previous slide, I mentioned that the logistic regression only calculates the outcome as 0 or 1. So why do we have a curve from 0 to 1? It should be a straight line at 1 or a straight line at 0, right? So actually the reason is the logistic regression actually calculates a probability. So let's take for an example, the final probability of an event occurring is 0.6. So what does this mean? So does my output belong to class number 1 or class number 0? So when such a situation occurs, what we need to do, we need to set a threshold value here. So let's take our threshold value to be 0.5. So what does this mean? This means any value which is in the range 0.5 to 1, it is going to be classified as 1. Okay, and any value which is below 0.5, that is in the range of 0 to 0.5, it is going to be considered as 0. So this way you can easily get a binary resultant variable, which is exactly what we need when it comes to logistic regression. So now let's try to understand this equation over here. So y over here, that is its range is between 0 and 1. So it represents the probability of an event to happen. Okay, so the y value over here can be anything between 0 and 0.1, 0 and 1. Like it can be 0.3, 0.2, 0.6, all of that. So, and that is when you set a threshold value so that you can categorize the output as 0 or 1. So we can take threshold value to be anything. Like if you take threshold value to be 0.2, so any value above 0.2 will be its output will be 1 automatically. Okay. Now we have x1, x2, x3. So these are basically the independent variables that are used to calculate the dependent variable. And C here is a numerical constant, and B1 and B2 are, it represents the respective coefficients of x1, x2, and so on. Moving on, let's discuss a use case in linear and logistic regression. So starting with linear regression, so we have a problem statement given over here. So our problem statement here is to study the relationship between the monthly e-commerce sales and the online advertising cost of some XYZ company in order to predict the monthly e-commerce sales in the upcoming months. So basically, we're going to predict the sales value based on the amount that they're spending on the advertising. Okay, so our dependent variable becomes the number of sales here, as it is very clearly mentioned. So our dependent variable is the monthly sales, and the independent variable, it's obviously the advertising cost. So here the data is provided in the table. So the advertising cost is represented in terms of $1,000 here. So if we have a plot, if we have to plot a graph, we get a linear positive relationship between the monthly e-commerce sales and the online advertising cost. So here you can see the plot. Now, this is a positive correlation. So when I say a positive correlation, it means that the value of the dependent variable y, which is basically the number of sales in this case, it increases with the value of independent variable. Okay, that's when you see that the line is going up. And this is called a positive slope or a positive correlation. And if the line was going in the downward direction, that would have been a negative slope or a negative correlation. So in this plot, we can predict our future sales. So linear regression, it has a lot of applications in business sector. Like it is used to forecast sales, it is used to perform risk analysis, etc. Now let's take a quick look at the use case for logistic regression. So our problem statement here is to predict if a student will get admitted to a school based on his CGPA. So if you look at our data set here, it contains two variables, the CGPA and the admission variable. So X over here indicates the CGPA and the Y-axis indicates whether the students will get the admission in the college or not. So 1 here means you have got the admission and 0 means you haven't got the admission. Now here, the logistic regression will help assess what level of CGPA leads to admission in college. So if here in the graph, if the CGPA is below 6, that means they're not getting the admission. Why? Because that's when y is equal to 0, right? And so the students who are classified in the group y equal to 1 are going to get the admission, whereas the students who are classified in the group y equal to 0 will not get the admission. So in the similar manner, logistic regression is used to solve n number of complex classification problems. For example, this logistic regression problems, it can be used in the cyber security domain to detect fraudulent customers, or it is also used in the image classification and a lot other classification problems.
Yeah, now let's move on to the convolution neural networks. Okay, so CNN or the convolution neural network is a class of deep learning neural networks, and it works best for image classification. By image classification, we intend to segment images into different categories based on the features. A feature could be anything like the edges in an image, the pixel intensity, the change in the pixel values, and many more things. Basically, CNN works by extracting features from the image. And any CNN consists of the following things. The input layer. So the input layer consists of a grayscale image. Then comes the output layer. So the output layer basically consists of binary or multi-class labels. Then comes the hidden layer, which consists of convolution layers, rectified linear unit layers, and the pooling layers. Now, before we move on to our project, let's learn about some functional libraries. First comes the question, what is TensorFlow? So TensorFlow is basically an open source library developed by Google for deep learning. Next, we'll discuss about Keras. So Keras is an open source software library that provides Python interface for artificial neural networks. Then we have Sequential. So Sequential is used to initialize the neural networks. Next is Convolution 2D, which is used to make the convolutional neural network that deals with the images. Then comes Max Pooling 2D. So Max Pooling 2D is used to add the pooling layers. Then Flatten is basically used to convert the pooled feature into a single column. Lastly, Tense adds the fully connected layer to the neural network. Now, as discussed earlier, layers are the basic building blocks of a neural network, and in Keras, a layer consists of tensor in and tensor out computation function. So now let's see an image classifier project. Yeah. So in this project, what we are striving to do is that we want to classify whether an image is of a building, a forest, a glacier, a mountain, a sea, or a street. So the first thing that we do in any other deep learning project is that we load the data set. So you can see here that we've loaded the data set and we have unzipped the files. And now the next thing that we'll do is that we'll import certain convolutional network libraries. Like you can see that firstly we imported TensorFlow, and then we've imported the following libraries like the image data generator, Adam, early stopping, and convolution 2D, max pooling 2D, dense, and flatten. So we've learned the functionalities of the following libraries in the previous slide. After performing the following task, what we'll do is that we'll build a model by adding convolutional layers. So you can see here that we have built our model. First, like we have initialized the neural networks using dot sequential. Then we've added various layers to our model. Okay, so now like using dot summary, like we can describe a data set. Like our model consists of layer, output, shape, parameter, and so on things. After this, we train and test the data. So using this train data gendered flow from directly, we'll generate our training data set, and using test data gendered flow, we generate a testing data set. After that, we'll fit our model using model.fit. And the last thing that we'll do is that we'll predict a model. So like earlier, we have discussed that using this project, we want to classify whether the image is of a building, a forest, a glacier, a mountain, a sea, or street. So what we've done is that we have added all these things in a dictionary, and then we'll predict it. So you can see here that we'll get the following predictions, and like it's a very large data set, so we'll get predictions that last basically 5,000 lines. Yeah, so this is all about the project.